This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Here is your host, Mr. Steve Jones.
Wow, it sounds impressive.
Crisp, clear today. We're feeling good.
You're always crisp and clear. What are you talking about?
Oh, thank you. You're so kind.
Doc, gone.
So he's not crisp and clear today.
No. Is he the reason the Sixers are eliminated again? No.
Nope.
He is way down the list. This is a confused management trying to tell the city, look, we're doing something, when they aren't really doing anything. The bottom line is, Embiid is a great player. Okay, he's a great player. But I don't know. I'm trying to remember how much we got into this yesterday about MVPs.
We got into it a good bit. I may have slandered a few players along the road.
No, that's not my point. My point is, anybody who wins the MVP, you can never take that away from them. They have earned it. They've gone out. People voted for them. It is something they have the rest of their lives. But does it mean that you're actually the best player? To me, the best player sometimes is somebody, and we talked about Big Shot Bob, Robert Horry. Well, Robert Horry is not the best player. But in Game 7, do I want Joel Embiid or Robert Horry in the fourth quarter? I want Robert Horry in the fourth quarter. Why? Because he has proven through practicality that he will not only want to take the big shot, he'll make the big shot. Is he a Hall of Famer? No. But if you're asking me who I want in that spot, I want him. I don't want Joel Embiid in that spot. He has proven in that spot nothing. Now, he's the regular season MVP. That's great. Aaron Judge was the MVP last year in the American League. Okay. What's Aaron Judge's batting average in the postseason?
It ain't good.
211. Right? Guess what? The pitching's better. Right? The at-bats are more intense. Everybody is locked in. Right? It's not a game against the Oakland A's in July. It's different. Right? Okay. You're facing even the Guardians. That's Bieber on the mound. Okay. And this is why my respect for the Bryce Harpers, the Derek Jeters, the David Ortiz, right? You can go through the list of guys that when the, quote, money is on the table and the intensity is at its highest, for what Albert Pujols, they have the ability to block out the room and go, okay, time to play ball. They're the coolest cats in the building. Would I rather have on the mound, I mentioned Clayton Kershaw, John Lester. I'll give you another one. Would I rather have Game 7, Clayton Kershaw, and I don't give a darn about his politics, Curt Schilling in Game 7? It's not even close. I hand the ball to Curt Schilling. Kershaw will make the Hall of Fame. Schilling will not, but Schilling's 11-2 in the postseason. He's 11-2.
That ain't half bad. So you're saying you'd rather have a player named Big Shot over a player named The Process? What you're saying?
Yes.
Seems like a pretty fair compromise in reasoning there.
I mean, again, you know how analytics, okay, numbers, right? I have two eyes.
It's two numbers.
Yeah, I have two eyes. I know what my eyes tell me.
Right? And they tell you this Sixers team is not going to be the same next year.
Right. No, it won't be the same. I mean, for example, America may not embrace Jimmy Butler, but doggone, Jimmy Butler's darn good in the postseason, isn't he? I mean, he really is.
He is.
I mean, your guy Brunson, I thought, was really good this year.
He he put himself in a category where now he's an elite guard in the league. He's
Yes.
up there.
Yeah. And guess who plays a lot like Jalen Brunson?
Believe the name you're looking for is James Harden.
No, James Harden. No. Okay. There's a little ticker problem with James Harden.
Oh, sorry about that.
Jalen Pickett, NBA draft combine,
Well then,
plays a lot like Jalen Brunson. He plays the way Brunson did in college at Villanova.
he's fighting for everything. He's getting in your face. He's using his shoulder, getting into you.
All right. Has a little different game. And he's playing right now in the combine in Chicago with Seth Lundy. And they're not in the G League combine. They're in the NBA combine.
They're in the pros.
Now, your guy, Victor Wembanyama, okay, is not in Chicago.
He is not. He is currently, I believe, playing a game in France as we speak with the Metropolitan 92s.
Gutless. He should be in Chicago. We want to see him.
I think he's okay to sit back home and
he's
relax.
going to be the
I think
first
he's
overall
okay.
Is this ping pong ball night?
Yeah, this is ping pong ball night tonight. It is the NBA draft lottery where we find out who is going to take Wembanyama first overall. I think the only players in recent memory since like 2000 to come out with this level of hype, and tell me if I'm wrong, are LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson, and now Victor. That I think AD was the consensus number 1 overall pick. He just won with Kentucky, and it was like, the Brow.
I saw the Brow play in person.
Yeah. So
The Brow played against Penn State, you know.
mhm.
Yeah. They went on a 25-0 run at the end of the first half that Johnny Graham, with a layup, ended at the end of the half. It was not pretty. It was at the Mohegan Sun.
Beautiful place in Connecticut,
Yes.
Uncasville. So
Yes.
would you say those three and Victor are the foremost hyped in recent memory where you can say they're the consensus number 1 overall pick, not just because they are great players, but because they come with just so much more of like a transformational shift in the franchise that is to come. And tonight, one of 14 teams is going to get him.
Who has the most ping pong balls?
The most ping pong balls
Houston?
are the Houston Rockets, Detroit Pistons, and San Antonio Spurs, because they made their recent shifts in years for now the lottery to kind of get rid of tanking to make it so the 3 worst teams have the same odds. They each have 14%. Then the Hornets have 12.5%, the Trailblazers with 10.5%, and then it kind of goes down from there for a few different teams. So, but there are a few interesting teams in this lottery where if they get Victor Wembanyama, it makes things a little bit interesting. So if you were to pick a team in this lottery that could get him, and the one team I believe that cannot pick him would be the New York Knicks, because if the Dallas Mavericks pick is top 10, they don't get their pick. The Mavericks keep it. And then the Magic's second pick will go to the Bulls if they get number 1 overall.
The Bulls.
The Bulls. So which of the 14
now,
teams?
Wouldn't that be something if the Bulls ended up with the first pick? That would mean in the NHL entry draft and in the NBA draft, Chicago would have the first pick in each, and the Bears traded away the first overall pick to Carolina.
How many times think in history that's happened, where the same city could have had the first overall pick in 3 different major pro sports league
And
drafts?
I'll be honest with you, the White Sox have been trending toward the first pick in next year's draft. So, yeah.
That would be truly immense, I think is the best way to put it. But who do you believe, firstly, Victor, you would want to see Victor go to? Now, obviously, the Pistons, Rockets, and Spurs have the best odds, but where of these 14 teams, assuming they don't trade the first overall pick for 17 picks, do you want him to go?
Where do I want him to go?
Yeah, where would you want him to go just to see it happen?
I mean, the late Red Auerbach would have traded and he'd be a Celtic.
But in this NBA trade economy, that one pick is going to cost them their next 75 years of draft picks.
Red would have figured it out. I mean, you want to know how they got Bird?
A lot.
Nope. They drafted Bird. They had a rule in because Bird had gone to 1 year at Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
He was one and done.
Okay. I don't even think Larry played a game. And then he went to Indiana State. So when he played at Indiana State the year they went to the Final Four, they were undefeated, went to the Final Four, lost to Magic in the championship game. It was actually his 5th year. Because he was at the end of his 4th year, the NBA had a rule where you could pick him. So the Celtics picked him with the 5th overall pick in the draft, and they picked Freeman Williams with the 6th pick. So they held his rights for a year, and they had 1 year to sign him.
Smart.
Right? And then signed him and went from 18 wins to 60.
And a few championships along the way. That doesn't hurt.
Victor Wembanyama is not going to take a team from 18 to 60. Bird did. Okay. 18 wins to 60. Your basic 42-win improvement. I'll say if he goes to Detroit, you already have Jaden Ivey there. You have Cunningham there. You have an interesting team there. I think Deron Hayes kid is still there, right?
Killian Hayes, he is still there.
He has not done well. He has not done well at all.
For a high lottery pick, 5th overall, I believe, his year, 6th overall.
He has not done well.
The Flying Frenchman.
Okay. Well, no, I remember when he was. Deron played here at Penn State. Okay. And Deron came back one time, and he had his, quote, little guy with him. Like, oh, great. Hey, Deron. I was like, ever tell you my Deron Hayes story?
I have not heard your Deron Hayes story. Let's hear it.
Deron Hayes, by the way, was Atlantic 10 Freshman of the Year. Terrific player. His senior year was Penn State's first year. So his freshman year, so he gets to the NCAA tournament in his sophomore year after being the freshman of the year in 90. And then as Penn State's best player their first year in the Big Ten. Well, they're playing in the NIT. He's a freshman. So he and Dave Deggets. And I'm in New York. And they get to the NIT semifinals. They lost to Vanderbilt in the semis. And they're walking down the street on Broadway outside the Marriott Marquis. And I'm out to get dinner. And I'm walking out there and they go, hey, Mr. Jones. I said, look what we bought. This is incredible. We got them for $10. They each got Rolexes. I went, you bought Rolexes? Yeah, this guy right over here. I said, really? You bought Rolexes.
Did Rolex have air quotes around it?
Like, I'm saying, I'm sure they are. Now, every once in a while, one of them actually is. So years later, I saw Deggets. His Rolex died about a month and a half later. When I saw Deron, his was still working.
Wow.
Yes, I was very impressed. I said, really? He says, oh, yeah, it still works. I'm like,
shout out to Deron Hayes.
Yeah, ready to go. So where do I want him to go?
Yeah. Let's say, so if the Pistons,
I don't care.
Rockets, you don't care.
I'm at the point in my life and career where I'm fully invested in what I'm announcing. And when I'm watching my, quote, teams, I'm pretty relaxed going, okay, well, it didn't work out. Yeah. I don't think too much about it.
Fair.
It's like, okay, well, Celtics didn't win. Okay, yeah. Or the Celtics won. Okay, great. They're on to the next round. They got Miami. I don't really think too much about it.
Understandable.
It's just like the Red Sox. Grew up a Red Sox fan, lifelong Red Sox fan. Went to Game 2 of the World Series in 2004. Schilling, bloody sock, whole thing, right? Loved it. Great experience. They won the whole, right? And they've won now 4 times, right? Like last night, they got crushed by Seattle, 10-1. Okay. Okay. It's like, all right. If they win, it's really nice. If they lose, I'm like, okay.
Can I give you my personal pick? Because I enjoy chaos and I enjoy fun.
Okay. You're hoping for the Knicks, but they can't get it.
They can't get it. The Mavericks have their pick. Firstly, the Mavericks would be quite interesting. Him and Luka. and the fact that Luka might want out soon.
Do you keep Kyrie?
I mean, I don't think Kyrie would want to leave if you're getting Vic.
Are you sure?
I think he would look to stay.
Nobody knows what he thinks.
That is very fair. But at this point, they cannot let him go because they would not survive. But my pick, because I think it has become due, the bill has become due for the Oklahoma City Thunder to be a great team again. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, the wing Jalen Williams, the one from Santa Clara, Chet Holmgren, didn't play this past year, the second overall pick in the draft.
Good player,
and Victor Wembanyama. What a big five that would be. I think the shortest one is Giddey, who would be 6'9".
Okay, so
I think.
So if the Thunder were to get him, what are their odds of getting him? Are they at 10%?
Their odds are 1.5% at the 12th overall pick. But then again, it is low. It is the third lowest. But the Thunder have this luck where they always get the first overall pick. It kind of happened for a while. I mean, they got pretty darn good picks for a few years. They got Giddey recently. They got Holmgren. But in my head, I'm imagining them in the first round of the playoffs beating the Clippers and Kawhi and Paul George, who caused this all to happen, all these trades and this stuff to go down.
Sure.
Then they go on to beat Kevin Durant, their former player in the Suns. And then they go on to beat whoever else it is, whether it's the Minnesota Timberwolves and Rudy Gobert, so it's Frenchman on Frenchman, whatever. And then they win the whole thing.
Rudy Gobert has as much offense as you do.
Yeah. I would say I think we're about equal. But I would enjoy that or him in Portland with Damian Lillard. I think for my heart, I would like him to be in one of those two locations. And also, those aren't terrible places to live.
There are very few places out there that are terrible to live. You can talk about Detroit, but you go to suburban Detroit, it's gorgeous. It's nice.
It's going to be a fun night tonight. One team is going to be cheering like I know the Pelicans were after their Zion lottery win. It's going to be that. It's going to be beautiful. Social media is going to have a field day.
It's interesting. Zion has played about the way I thought Zion would play in the NBA.
Who's going to play more games by the end of next season in their careers total? Zion or Victor Wembanyama?
At the end of next season?
Yeah.
I think both Chet Holmgren and Wembanyama will pass Zion Williamson.
Zion, I don't think, has hit 80 games.
No,
he's close.
No, he'll never play 80 games in a season. For goodness sakes. It'd be lucky if he gets in 45. Yeah, okay. So that's tonight, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What time is that tonight? It's going to be, usually do it at halftime of a game. Are they going to do it before?
It is tonight at 8 p.m. It is happening in Chicago where the Combine is.
Okay.
So 8 p.m. ESPN. The first overall pick probably won't get announced until about 15, 20 minutes in. It usually takes like 5-10 minutes of setup. And then they do the first, I think, 11 picks or 10 picks, and then they have that commercial break. Yeah, where in 2019, it was the commercial break with the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, the Knicks, and the Lakers sitting on the clock. And everyone's like, oh, it's rigged because the Knicks and Lakers are going to get Zion and Ja. And
it ended up being New Orleans and Memphis.
And ended up being those two. And then the Lakers pick ended up being traded, for Anthony Davis.
Yes.
And the Knicks pick ended up being R.J. Barrett, who might be the best player going forward out of that draft class. It's a pretty fair statement to make with how Ja's year has ended and Zion's career is gone. Am I wrong in saying that?
Ja's a great talent. Ja needs to get himself together. He needs to surround himself with good people. He needs to get away from bad influences. Because that's the only way he's going to be able to flourish in his life, and it's the only way he's going to be able to flourish in his career.
And he's got the talent to do it.
He's made big off-the-court mistakes, and part of that is by the people he's surrounded himself with.
Agreed.
And this guy had a terrific upbringing. So, all right. So the Big Ten meetings continue today. The ACC has been meeting. I think they're meeting in Scottsdale. Last I checked was not ACC country.
I mean, who knows? Maybe in Arizona comes on over
You never
to the ACC, the Atlantic Coastal Conference.
These meetings never take place in Bismarck, North Dakota. Did you notice that?
I did know. That's odd.
Yeah.
Why would that happen?
Message from this station and the Bismarck, North Dakota Chamber of Commerce. So there's the Big Seven. We need changes. You do. Well, you're not incorrect, but here's a big problem. In 2016, every single school signed to extend the contract to 2036. You all did. That's going to be the big problem you have moving forward. There is a document with the signature of your president and athletic director on it that says, this is cool, this is what we're doing. That's a big problem. I've read the grant of rights, so I know what it says. It's short. It's only a 5-page document. One of them is. One's 5, one's 8. So I don't know if it's the Big 12 that's 5 and the ACC's 8 or the other way around. But either way, it's not long. It is, when you read it, it's not a lot of legalese. It's pretty simple and it's pretty direct.
And it's pretty binding.
And has very few, it's hard to find loopholes. Okay? But now they're talking out of nowhere about, we need to break this thing up. Okay, let's start with this. Okay. ESPN, which is now laying people off, and they aren't even remotely close to being done yet. They're doing it in 3 phases. We've only heard of phase 1. So you heard about ESPN layoffs 10 days ago? Oh, is that it? Oh, no. There are 2 more phases to go. And the last one, which I think is 2 months away, I think next month there'll be a second wave. The third wave will be the one where you go, oh, that's where, quote, the on-air talent is. You're telling me they're in the mood to give you more money? They already have a contract with you. They are not going to give you more money. I'm running ESPN. I'm looking around going, we already have a deal. We're done. We have budgets. We're finished. Right? Okay. You want us to run the ACC network? We are. Okay. You guys are the ones that wanted it. That's why we put the extension in place, because the original contract was supposed to run out 2027. Okay, that was the original deal. It was supposed to run out 2027. Now it runs out 2036. There are a lot of reports out there about, well, there's actually a way to get out of this. There's a way to get out of it? Okay, there's an exit fee. Okay? But the problem with the grant of rights is the grant of rights is not the exit fee. The exit fee is about $120 million.
I don't believe schools want to pay that one. They like their money.
Well, that is approximately 3.5 times what you get per year, TV-wise, from the ACC contract. Okay. Where are you going to go? The Big 12? They make slightly less than you do. And there is no Big 12 network. So everybody, well, of course, the Big 10 will take them. Why?
No need.
Why? It's interesting how the SEC is sitting there, showing no inclination whatsoever to going beyond what they have. Why would you? There's no need to do that. And that's the same thing I say to the Big 10. Why don't you worry about getting USC and UCLA in? Okay. Get them scheduled. See how it works. Then at the end of this TV contract, then see what you might need to do. Because these schools are sitting there. Okay, let's talk about bringing, all right, let's do this numerically. So let's just use the basic $75 million. That's what, quote, the average is of what everybody claims the Big Ten contract to be. So let's just use that. It could be 100. It could be 80. Let's just use 75. There is no way in heck that Fox, CBS, or NBC are going to say, oh, you're adding Florida State. Here's another $75 million. No, they already have a contract. Right? We're adding Oregon. That's nice. You already have a contract. Okay, there's one clause in there, and the clause is Notre Dame, because Notre Dame can add value to what you're doing. There's very little value left out there, despite what these people think. So let's start with Florida State. Okay? Florida State last year was 15th in the nation, which is very good, in average number of viewers. Okay? By the way, Penn State was 5th or 6th, somewhere in there. Penn State averaged about 3.65 million viewers. They had 4 games over 4 million last year. Okay? And you're sitting there and you're looking at this. And you're saying, okay, they're 15th in viewers. Great. Number one, they're not an AAU school. What do the presidents in the Big Ten value? AAU schools. Whoops. When Nebraska came in, they were an AAU school. Then, because of their medical center situation, they fell out of it after they joined the Big Ten. But everybody else is. Yes, Rutgers is. Okay. USC and UCLA are both AAU schools. And you can talk about value all you want, but there's only 2 schools in the ACC that add value. I know you love Syracuse. I understand that. But I've got the TV numbers, that show what it has been like the last 5 years, what the trends are. Clemson is number 1 in viewership in the ACC. Florida State is number 2. I think those are the only 2 schools in the ACC that average more than 1 million viewers per game last season.
That makes sense.
The other 12, I think it's 14 in the ACC, right? The other 12 were all below. And before you ask about Pitt, they averaged 650,000 viewers a game.
Not bad, not terrible.
Right? That's 3 million fewer viewers per game than Penn State averaged. Okay. Just thought we'd mention that.
Yeah.
That's for football. So where's the value of we're going to add them in and it's going to be, okay? No. And the TV networks are, everybody has spent to the max. This is what I'm trying to drive home to people. Look at the value of what? Your value of what? Okay, hold on a second. Okay, here's where the value is. If I put my money into that league, I get LeBron James, Jason Tatum, right? Nikola Jokic, Doncic, Brunson, right? Embiid, the whole thing. That's where people are going to bid. That's where everybody is saving their money for. The NBA contract is up. That's where the networks want to put their money next. They don't want to put it into you. They already have. Do you think Fox wants to put in more money for this? They want to bid for the NBA. Right? Yeah, the Pac-12 is sitting out on an island right now. Now, are the Florida State people rightly concerned that there is a potential $30 to $40 million gap? I mean, you take $40 million times 7, which is the length of the Big Ten contract. You're talking that's a $280 million gap in 7 years. That's per school. That's not in the overall deal. That's per school. Rutgers will get $280 million more than Florida State will in the next 7 years if everything stays the same. That's why.
That's funny.
Well, no, but that's why when Texas and Oklahoma went, I said directly on this show, I said, if you're the Big Ten, everybody kept throwing out, hey, go to Kansas. Hey, go to Kansas. I'm like, Kansas, Colorado, Iowa State. Oh, my favorite was Iowa State. Iowa State.
The Cyclones, baby. Bring them in.
I said, you already have Iowa. You don't need Iowa State. All right? I said, if you're going to do this, go big, go get USC. Okay, that's exactly what I said. And it was only just me saying, hey, look, here's the biggest brand out there. If you're going to do it, go big.
Steve, if you're going to admit you're a part of the Illuminati, just say so.
No, it was just one of those. I just blurted it out because I thought, hey, look, in other words, if you're going to go big, like the SEC went with Texas and Oklahoma. They went big. I said, if you're going to go big, I said, you probably can't get Notre Dame. I said, so go get somebody like USC. I said, who cares? Right. And that's all. I just said it to say it. Okay. But the reason is that you don't want to just bring somebody in. You don't want to expand. It has to have somebody that brings with it, like, holy Mary, what the heck? And they did that with USC and UCLA.
They nailed it.
And I said at the time, I said, look, if I'm Mike Bone, the USC athletic director, I said, I'm looking around and I'm saying, and I literally said this, so we're getting $30 million and Rutgers is getting 55? Excuse me, there's something wrong here. And that's, I'm sure, what these guys are saying. I'm sure that's what these guys are saying.
Absolutely.
And Rutgers was dead last in TV ratings in the Big Ten this season. They averaged 615,000 viewers per game. And keep in mind, and remember, they played Penn State. They played Ohio State. They played Michigan. All those games had viewership. So when you see the Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan viewership, take out the Rutgers game, okay? The number's exponentially higher because Rutgers doesn't bring anybody to the table.
It's because they're Rutgers.
Right. They don't bring viewers to the table. You can talk all this New York mumbo-jumbo all you want, but they don't, okay? They bring in the fact that they're there in New Jersey, and yes, okay, there are different tiers, and because you have a school in the footprint, you get the highest tier when it comes to BTN, which I think is going to happen in Southern California now, right? You'll get, it'll be the highest tier that it'll go on BTN. But you have to be able to have the ability of saying, okay, if I'm bringing somebody in, who brings in $75 million per year worth of value? Because if I'm going to sit there and let's just do the basic math, okay? If I'm going to sit there and let's just do it at $10 million a school, I've got 16 schools at $160 million, okay? If the networks are like, whatever, and now I get to 18, well, what's 18 divided into 160? Everybody's not getting 10 million anymore. If you do it 20, everybody's getting 8 million. Well, why do I want less? I don't want less. Now, if I go to negotiate a new contract at the end of the decade, okay, now you start to maybe expand. Now you go into the networks and say, this is what we have. This is our footprint. But when you already have a TV deal, why do you want to then change the terms of your TV deal when right now they're laying off people left and right and you're locked in, they're locked in, and everybody feels good about it? See, that's the problem you have here, right? Well, Washington and Oregon would be willing to take less. From who? From who? Which TV network is going to sit back and go, you know what, we'll give you $40 million more a year. I know it's not 75. We'll give you. They don't want to give you $40 million more. They're trying to get the NBA. And this is where they're sitting here. These ACC schools are overplaying their hand, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
They're overplaying their. I understand where they're coming from. Again, I'm the Florida State athletic director. I am the Clemson athletic director. I'm Dan Radakovich, who's now down at Miami. All right? And I'm looking around, and I'm saying, Rutgers is going to get $280 million more in the next 7 years than I will. There is something wrong with this. Indiana football is going to get $280 million more than Clemson football.
Crazy.
Sorry, Pat, I had to throw that in there. Pat knows I'm right. When it comes to that, I mean, Indiana basketball's great, when it comes to the basketball season, but football's driving this. It's what football drives, right? Syracuse has awesome basketball and good football, right? But basketball isn't driving this.
The numbers are always in football. For pros, for college, those numbers are astronomically just so high.
Everyone thinks that, I'll tell you a school that would draw a lot of people right away. Say they're all free agents. You know who would draw people right away?
Who?
North Carolina. I'm
Yeah.
talking like Big Ten. You want to know why North Carolina? Great academic school. AAU school. Okay. Good in football. Mac has done a good job. They're not great, but they're good. And obviously in basketball, they have potential to be great, but they're an attractive school in a lot of ways. If I hear one more time about Atlanta and Georgia Tech, okay, Georgia Tech is an afterthought in Atlanta, okay? Atlanta is driven by Georgia football, then the Falcons. Okay, then you start getting into the Hawks and the Braves. Okay, Georgia Tech is down the line. Georgia Tech football is a total afterthought in Atlanta. They don't get any TV ratings. It's like I hear Stanford. Stanford what? What does Stanford do? Stanford downsized its stadium to 35,000. What does that tell you? They're not getting 35,000 for a game.
But they're smart.
No, but they're not getting 35,000 for a game. And you look at their TV ratings, they're like 70th in average TV viewership. Really? Where's the driver there? Now, Oregon and Washington, to their credit, are both in the top 20. I think Oregon is something like 10th or something.
Yeah, Oregon's pretty high up. Oregon will make
12th.
sense.
Oregon's 12th. Oregon's 12th in TV ratings because Clemson's 10.
Yeah, but Oregon makes sense. Clemson, I get it. Florida State, not the worst one in the world. But a part of the...
And Washington.
But a part of the ACC 7, the ones who want that change, right. You've got like NC State and Virginia Tech. You've also got North Carolina and Virginia. Those two, I think, are a tier above North Carolina State and Virginia Tech.
People don't watch Virginia football. Great school.
But at least they're a good school, and they at least give you something.
Great school. There's one... Okay? I got all the chips on the table. I only have one gigantic platinum chip on the table. That's all I got. It's Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That's the only big chip left. Okay? You can think of Oregon as a big chip. No. Washington, no. Clemson, no. Florida State, no. They are secondary chips compared to the one big chip. Okay?
Fighting Irish.
Okay? Texas and Oklahoma were big chips. SEC got them. USC was that big chip. And UCLA, okay, wasn't a bad, like, hey, we can't just let them sit out there in an island. We'll bring them both in. Okay? There's only one of those chips left. It's Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's going to hold everybody hostage. And they don't need to do anything. I can just do them.
Their contract is up. They've requested $75 million. They will not get $75 million. I think they'll be fortunate to get $40 to $45 million a year, which would double what they're getting now. Right now they're 22. Okay. But they're still going to be way behind everybody else. Again, let's go back to what people are doing. NBC was able to roll its NHL money, which they're no longer paying, and they rolled it into a Big Ten TV contract. They had to pay more, but they rolled the savings in. CBS rolled its savings from the SEC, rolled that in. But now everybody's looking around saying, okay, what is left of live sports in an era where people are laying off? Amazon's laying off. Disney and ESPN are laying off. Apple is laying off. These are all the alleged bidders for this. Okay? I mean, Peacock's going to get a an NFL wildcard playoff game exclusively. And plus, they're getting a regular season game. It's the Chargers and the Bills, I believe.
Yeah.
You want to know how much money Peacock lost last year?
Quite a bit.
$700 million. That's what Peacock lost last year. Again, streaming. It's the future. Streaming. Excuse me. People are losing their shirts in the streaming business right now. Amazon's losing money. Okay? Apple's losing a ton in streaming. Peacock is getting, Paramount Plus is, okay, you're talking about streaming losses across the board. It is not the great savior.
You know what's crazy right now? You know who was up streaming-wise this past month from March 27th to April 30th? Give me your guess. What platform was up streaming-wise? Has a bigger percentage points-wise than anyone else?
I don't know. I can't even begin to guess.
YouTube.
Really?
Not even YouTube TV, just YouTube. Their percentage went up to an 8.1% share of the entire streaming market.
Really?
So they have a bigger footprint in the streaming world than everyone else does.
Really?
And all these platforms are fighting. Netflix is at like 6.9. I think Hulu's 3.3. HBO's like 4 something. They're all saying, oh, we're the biggest streaming platform in the world. YouTube beats them, and it's not close.
Since 2020, Disney Plus, NBC Universal, which is Peacock, Paramount, which is Paramount Plus, and Warner Brothers Discovery, which is HBO Max and Discovery, have combined to lose, since 2020, $18 billion. That's a problem. Disney, okay? Disney Plus is growing, but their losses are $1.5 billion. And they're getting more people to watch. Let's see, record decline. Why Disney Plus lost another 4 million subscribers. Okay, this is an article by Tom Fitzgerald. Quote, I cover the business of television. This article came out 6 days ago. I always love when somebody sends something and you look at the date on it. It was 3 years ago. I'm like, no, I don't think that's good. There was some tweet that was put out. Big Ten has vetted Washington, and Oregon. The tweet is from 8 months ago. It's like, okay. They're laying off 7,000, as we pointed out, and that includes ESPN. Disney Plus suffered its second straight quarterly decline during the first 3 months of the year, shedding 4 million subscribers. That came to a 2.4 million drop in the final, on top of the 2.4 million drop they had in the final quarter last year. Okay, up until the final quarter last year, they actually had never suffered a subscriber loss. But now they have a problem. All the losses can be, a lot of losses can be attributed to around the world, including the United States, Canada, and now India. Okay? And worldwide, Disney Plus has 157.8 million subscribers, second only to Netflix. Okay? But they've lost like 6 million since the last quarter. Okay? 8% of their total subscribers. This is typical of what's happening with everyone. And they're losing money. Streaming losses are all over the place with this. That's why I find what's interesting is Amazon Prime is going to be the key to bailing out the Pac-12. No. Okay. And Amazon Prime has the NFL. And was it like $1 billion a year contract?
Something like that. Right? It's quite a lot of money.
Right. Now, if I'm sitting in Jeff Bezos' office, let me think about that for a moment. Let me just absorb and enjoy the moment. Okay, I'm Jeff Bezos. Right. But if they tell me that I should be bidding for the NFL, you darn right I'm bidding for the NFL. Darn right I am. Right? I'm looking back at at the early to mid 90s when Fox went to the NFL, and when Rupert Murdoch brought in the NFL, he did it for, it's the NFL, but he did it with the idea of, I'll be able to promote during NFL games our primetime lineup. How often do you hear on CBS Jim Nantz say, coming up tonight on 60 Minutes?
All the time.
Right? Well, the idea was on Fox to get Pat Summerall and John Madden to say, hey, the Simpsons are coming up tonight. That's why he did it. And then the NFL has gone from here to here. The value was off the charts. But that was the primary reason he did it. Well, that's what Bezos and Amazon were looking around saying, hey, you know what? How do we get people to watch Jack Ryan? How do we get people to watch Jack Reacher? Okay, those are some of their originals.
Mrs. Maisel.
Mrs. Maisel. Mrs. Maisel being promoted on there all the time. The
Boys, all these different shows that are huge, popular.
And by the way, the latest part is Amazon is the one that they went to and produced the movie Air, which I ended up watching on Saturday.
How was it?
A chance to watch it. Excellent. It's
Very
excellent. Good. And for those who don't know what the concept of Air happens to be, it is how Nike, whose basketball division is struggling beyond words, gets Michael Jordan when Jordan was all but locked up to go to Adidas. And there's a great final scene. I'll do a little spoiler here.
Wow, how dare you spoil events that have already happened.
Everybody knows how it turns out. Jordan goes to Nike, right? Where Dolores Jordan, Michael's brilliant mother, says he'll go to Nike. He's going to go to Nike for what you offered, which was, I think, $250,000 a year is what the number was. I think that was the max. In other words, they're supposed to divide the $250 among 3 players. Let's go for Melvin Turpin. Like, no. Somebody with common sense in the room, I think it's probably Sonny, says no, not Melvin Turpin. Right? We need to go after Michael Jordan because I guess Akeem is already locked up. Sam Bowie's already locked up, right? And the thought was that Jordan was locked up with Adidas. He says, we'll take the $250. He says, long-term contract. He says, but he wants a percentage of all the products sold, which at that point had never been done.
Mm-hmm.
And she requested it. And Sonny Vaccaro, who's sharp and he's, Sonny's an interesting guy. I've met Sonny who knows how many times. Right, and he's sharp as heck. And even he was like, well, we don't do that. Right? So he says, so finally after going around and round of we don't do that, he says, you know what, let me talk to Phil Knight. And Phil Knight, who had been kind of balking at this the entire time, he says, you're going to take the whole budget? He says, Sonny, why did I bring you in? Why did I bring you in? I said, we're not getting anywhere with this basketball division. And he goes in, he says, and Knight looks at him, he goes, the old Nike thing, just do it, right? He says, yeah, but she wants a percentage. He goes, oh. He says, we don't do percentages, right? He says, that's going to set a bad precedent. He says, you know what? He says, just lock him up. Right? He lays on the couch, he says, what could the sales of it be? He says, maybe $3 million. This is for the first year. You know what the sales were the first year?
I believe they were somewhere around like the 10 plus.
$162 million.
It's a nice number going into Jordan's pocket. And
well, in other words, he got a percentage of the 162. Yeah. Nike got a gigantic percentage. And the man who designed the shoe, because they said, we're going to... Part of the presentation was they're going to show the shoe that their brilliant designer who passed away just before the film.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of the deal. They said, well, the NBA has a certain rule on color. In other words, it mostly has to be white. And there's only a percentage of color you can put in. Well, a lot of the shoe was red. He says, you know what, the heck with it. Nike will pay the fines. It'll be great publicity. We'll pay the fines. Okay. He's the same guy years later, because Jordan stayed with Nike. who came up with the Jordan brand with the logo of him dunking. Same guy. Certain people are behind the scenes are geniuses.
Nike's, I think they are okay with having giving up the percentage a few years on.
No. It was one of those, it's set, in this image and name, image and likeness, it set the tone for everything else because of what Dolores Jordan requested. Smart, determined, protective of her son, not out there for the personal financial gain. She's like, they're living in Wilmington, North Carolina, in a nice house. Okay, and the movies. Look, now it's not going to appeal to like Jerry Valeri. It's not going to appeal to him.
That's okay.
No, there's no car chase in it. Okay, there's no car chase, right? There's no point where Sonny Vaccaro's being stalked by anybody. These are the kind of movies that appeals to Jerry.
But this is a movie that, especially over Mother's Day weekend, makes you say, "I love my mother."
Well, I can't blame Jordan for loving his.
No.
I'll tell you right now, she came through big.
Made him how many billions of dollars? Do you think?
But you know what? But Adidas was like he loved the shoes. Like Jordan evidently loved Adidas. He was, I guess, at North Carolina. They were in Nike.
They were in Adidas.
They were Adidas at the time.
Nike was in Adidas, and I believe, who did Adidas have? They had
a lot of people.
They had a bunch of them.
Converse had the biggest share.
Yeah.
Converse had 57% of the market.
Because they had what? They had the NBA contracts. They had a lot of players. They had everyone.
Bird and Magic were both Converse.
Yeah.
Right. So they had 57%. Adidas had something like 30-something percent.
Puma had a bunch.
And Nike was dead last. All right, but when it came to running shoes, because Phil's a runner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Phil's a runner. And that's been the key to this show, our ability to run from reality.
Of course. We are your escape from reality, folks.
No, we run from reality. At least I do. All right, Angela's got to take this spot. We got to turn it over to somebody who's really productive.
Yeah, we got to head on out a little bit, but don't worry. Of course, thanks for tuning in to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production. Of course, check back daily for all of your latest sports news and analysis with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball.
Tomorrow, we will go through the lottery.
Oh, yes, we will. Sadly, we're not going to win the lottery ourselves. Would love to win the lottery. And that